based legal research product. It is a state-of-the-art legal research platform for conducting legal research and is very well known for the introduction of the world's only one-click insight system called the iDraft Case Analytics. In short, the iDraft feature, powered by artificial intelligence, takes out the issue, decision, reasoning, arguments, and facts of a case law. LegitQuest has also recently started with Legit I, which is news, interviews, and columns, and serves the stakeholders of judiciary. Today's Legit class is on overview of Indian Evidence Act 1872, importance of Section 65B in the coming time. We are honored to have Mr. Vikas Pahwa as our guest speaker today. Welcome, Vikas, sir. We are truly privileged to have you here.
Thank you.
Mr. Pahwa was designated as senior advocate by the full court of the Delhi High Court in the year 2011. He has earned a niche in the Indian courts with regard to the criminal and corporate criminal litigations. Apart from his many appearances in high-profile matters, Mr. Pahwa was successful in prosecuting Maruti Suzuki Indian Limited Manesar factory riot case, in which the general manager, HR of the company was burnt alive and 90 employees of Maruti Suzuki were severely injured by the workers. Mr. Pahwa is impaneled as a senior advocate with the Delhi State Legal Authority, National Legal Authority, and has been engaged by the Honorable Supreme Court as amicus curiae in many special cases. So before we start, I would like to brief you all that today we have 45-minute session, and then we will take questions which you can send to us through the chat. I would humbly request everyone to please be on mute and without video for the entire session. We seem to be all set, and I would now hand over to Vikas sir now. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chahat, for a brief, short introduction. I really like it. Sometimes people really drag it so long and take all the time in introduction. Very nice. Thank you so much, LegitQuest, for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I really like your concept of Legit class, which is a continuous program of educating students and lawyers and even other people who are interested in knowing about the topic. Today's topic, fortunately, is very interesting and very relevant for what is happening with us nowadays. Of course, when the technology was introduced somewhere in 90s, in fact, before 90s, I'm talking about 1985, when I was in the school, the computers were introduced. And I got an opportunity to join a small institute in our small town, which started in 1985 to learn about computers. I spent about a month and a half just to understand what this technology is all about. And I remember a big CPU and a big, huge monitor and a keypad and a dot matrix printer. That was 1985. And see where we have reached today. So this, communication system and digital technology has really changed the world, the way people are conducting their business, the way now cases are conducted in the court. So this technology and communication system has become part of our life. And with the change in the technology and bringing new system, even the justice system has undergone a change. That is why in 2000, the Information Technology Act was brought, taking into consideration that the technology is being used, so therefore it has to be monitored. So 2000, when the Information Technology Act came and was enacted, there were various amendments which had taken place in various other statutes, and even in CRPC, Indian Evidence Act, the changes were brought. So all those changes now have become part of our judicial system. How the evidence has to be adduced has undergone a change. So we will be talking about all that, how the evidence has to be adduced, particularly taking into consideration the digital technology. Now see how technology has taken over now. If we see the period of lockdown, the lockdown started somewhere in 25th of March 2020. 22nd was a Sunday where we had that curfew, and then from 25th virtually everyone is locked at home. and now gradual unlocking has started. But this lockdown has brought a major change in our life. The major change is that we all have now adapted to the technology. Our screen time has really undergone a change. I remember when we started in last week of March, for the first 1 week, we have a provision in our phone to know how many hours we are spending on the screen. May I just request everyone to mute the mic, because otherwise it will be very difficult for me to speak. And I'm getting that alert sound again and again. Everybody who's logged in, there is an alert which is coming into my, in case that mic can also be switched off, then it'll be easy to speak.
Sorry, so we will take care of it.
Yes, thank you. So I was talking about the digital time, the screen time, which all of us are spending on the phone nowadays. I remember first week when I checked, on an average, we were spending about 7 to 8 hours a day, which was like so huge. That means almost the entire day we were on our phones. Of course, at that point of time, we all wanted to gather information about COVID-19. So there was a lot of, stress on everybody. But the COVID-19 and then further lockdown has shown that we all are now addicted to the technology. So what will be the impact of this? The impact will be that day-to-day businesses, day-to-day communication, day-to-day activities, everything will involve technology now. So therefore, it's very important that we expect that our laws are so robust that it takes care of each and every situation. It takes care of each and every situation. It takes care of each and every situation which we experience. So I hope, just like we have few laws which are pronounced by the Supreme Court, there are various judgments, and there is a constant growth in the law, which we have seen in the last about, say, around 20 years, because the Act came in 2000, we are now in 2020. So now I will talk about the changes which have come in law and how the evidence has to be adduced. Now, we all know that compliance of Section 65B is becoming very tedious and very complicated because of various judgments, and also because of the fact that it is not very clear as to in what case 65B is required and in what case it is not required now. So we will be talking about all that. So let me just start by talking about various sections in which the evidence has to be brought, particularly the electronic evidence. So when the Information Technology Act was brought in 2000, at that point of time, there were various definitions under IPC which were changed so that the word document, computer output, all these words were introduced in the Information Technology Act, and those definitions were also read into the Indian Evidence Act. So first change which was brought in the Indian Evidence Act was that the word document, if you see section 3, in section 3, in the word document, the word electronic record was introduced, because at that point of time, electronic record was not there, only record was there. So first change is that let us read the word electronic record in the Indian Evidence Act. And then, since the computer is the major source and all the evidence is a reproduction of the information from the computer, therefore various other definitions were also read. Definition like certifying authority, definition like electronic record, information, electronic form, and electronic signature certificate, all those definitions were picked up from the Information Technology Act and were brought in the Indian Evidence Act. And then we see section 65A and 65B were introduced. The whole objective was that how do you authenticate an electronic document or an electronic record? So let me tell you in simple words that what is 65B? 65B is a certificate. It is like a shortcut method if you bring a document in the court and you want to prove that document in the court, you will see that you have to adduce secondary evidence. You have to bring in the original, show the original, and then there is a tedious way of proving a secondary evidence because the primary evidence is not available in the court. So 65B is actually a shortcut to adducing a secondary evidence, that if you comply with certain conditions which are given in 65B and you file a certificate, if an appropriate person who's mentioned in the section is filing a certificate, then you don't need to do anything else. Then that document will be proved to be authentic in the court. So a method, a code was adopted and was introduced in the Indian Evidence Act in the form of 65B, which can be treated as a secondary evidence. So idea is, if I have a computer at home, which I can't bring to the court, and there is a computer output. Now, computer output is also defined in 65B. Computer output can be my printout, which I take from the printer. It can be a pen drive. It can be a CD. It can be a DVD. It can be a hard disk. So all these where I gather the information is called computer output. So I produce the computer output in the court and I gave a certificate in compliance with 65B, and I state the conditions which are mentioned in 65B, subsection 2, and I comply with 3 and 4. The computer output will be treated as authentic, and the court will say that no further evidence is required. You don't need to bring further proof. We are accepting that your document is authentic, and you don't need to bring the original. This is the impact of 65B. So if you have 65B, I can read a few lines from 65B just to show what are those requirements. So reading 65B, you will see that it starts from a non-obstante clause. Non-obstante clause is an overriding clause. That 65B is a code in itself. It will override all the other provisions of the Indian Evidence Act. If you comply with this, then it becomes mandatory, no matter what the other sections of Indian Evidence Act say. So let us read 65B for a moment. Notwithstanding anything contained in this act, any information contained in an electronic record, which is printed on a paper, as I told you, like a printout, stored, recorded, or copied in any optical or magnetic media produced by a computer. So either it's a printout, or it's a pen drive, or it's a CD, or it's a DVD, or it's a hard drive. It is hereinafter referred to as computer output. So that information which is not original but recorded in any form is being brought to the court shall be deemed to be also a document. It will be read as a document. So pen drive will be treated as a document, CD will be treated as a document if the condition mentioned in this section are satisfied in relation to information and computer. So two things which you need to satisfy the court about is, first is the information which you want to rely upon, and second, the condition of the computer from where it is emanating in question, and shall be admissible in any proceeding without further proof or production of the original as evidence of any content of the original or of any fact stated therein of which direct evidence would be admissible. So if you bring computer output in the form of computer printout or a CD or any other format, if you're bringing some information in that format, which you have taken from the computer, and you satisfy the court about the information and that condition of the computer, we will accept it as original, and we will accept it as it is admissible as a direct evidence. So this is subsection 1 of 65B, which shows the purpose of 65B. And then 65 subsection 2 talks about those conditions, right? So conditions, as I told you, what are the two preliminary conditions? The information and the condition of computer. So let us see 65B2. What does it say? What are those conditions which you have to satisfy in the form of a certificate? Because it's a shortcut. Because it is just one certificate which you are filing in the court in support or in aid of that information to show that it is authentic, and the court, after perusing that certificate, will accept it as true. No further inquiry will be required. No further proof will be required. So what are those conditions in subsection 2? Conditions referred to in subsection 1 in respect of computer output shall be the following, namely, one is with regard to computer. Computer output is that reproduction, that information containing the information was produced by the computer over which the computer was used regularly to store or process information. So first condition is, are you taking out information from a computer which is being regularly used? You'll have to only say, yes, it's a computer which I regularly use in the office. This is a printout which I have brought, and the information is from that computer. And it is used during that period and by the person having lawful control. So the person who's in charge of the computer is the person who's giving the information. That's the first condition. Second is the information. So condition of computer is 1. 2 is the information. During the said period, information of the kind contained in the electronic record or of the kind from which the information so contained is derived was regularly fed in the computer. Was this computer regularly used? Or was this computer regularly used for bringing that information in the computer? So second condition. Third is whether the computer was operating properly, or was it being used intermittently? If it was being used intermittently, whether it ever had any technical defect, or whether that technical defect was of such a level that it affected the information. You will say no, there was no problem. So you can always give C as an information. And D is whether the computer was being operated properly during that period. So with regard to information and with regard to condition of the computer, you have to give a certificate. So these are the conditions under subsection 2. If you satisfy these conditions in the form of an affidavit, affidavit is given in 465B4, subsection 4. So you have to give the affidavit with regard to these 4 conditions. You also have to identify the electronic record in 4. And you have to, and the person who's in charge of that computer, or a person who's in charge of that office, or any senior person who has a control over that office, he has a right to give a certificate. But he has to say that, yes, this information is to the best of my knowledge and belief, just like we filed affidavits in the court. And 3, subsection 3 is very important. That suppose I have an iPhone with me. iPhone has all the information. There's a Chief Justice of American High Court recently used the word microcomputer for a phone. He says these are not phones anymore. These are microcomputers. You have everything on this phone. So how can you say it is only a phone? So therefore, America recently has changed the law with regard to phones, because they are now treating this as a computer, because there the law of privacy is very, very high. They don't allow warrants. They don't allow information unless and until you satisfy that a crime has taken place, because it can affect the privacy of an individual. Unlike in India, where procuring an information is very, very easy. A head constable or a constable sitting in any police station of a remote area can write a letter to a service provider and say, I need CDR of this number because I am conducting an investigation. And you will see a service provider handing it over to that constable. This is the procedure which we adopt. But in America, when you want an information from a computer, now a microcomputer like your phone, which may be recovered at the spot, you have to, the IO is required to take the computer to the court and say, I need to open this, give me permission to open this. And if the court is satisfied, then an American court or an American judge will give permission to the investigating officer to open the phone. Now coming back on subsection 3, there's a requirement that if I have an iPhone, I have an iPad, and I have an iMac. Now all 3 are synced. Information in iMac and iPhone and the iPad, they are the same. So if I take a printout from my iPhone, not from my iMac or my iPad, it will be considered as one. I'll give you another example. If there are multiple branches of a bank all over the country, and there is head office in Delhi, if head office takes the information with regard to a branch computer in Bangalore or Chennai, it will be considered as one. That means if the computers which are linked by LAN, that is local network, or by any other format. If they are linked, they will be treated as one. If they are upgraded, means they are used in succession. I have an iPhone 10 today, tomorrow I'll have 11, then I have 12, then I have 13. So if the information which I fed when I had iPhone 10, but I take a printout when I have iPhone 13, it'll be considered as one. This is what subsection 3 says. So subsection 3 says whoever where over any period the function of storing or processing information for the purposes of any activity regularly carried on over that period, as mentioned in clause 2, was regularly performed by a computer, by a combination of computers, as I said, multiple computers operating over that period, by different computers operating in succession over the period, means iPhone 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, by different combinations of computer operating in succession over that period, or in any other manner involving the successive operation over that period in whatever order of one or more computers and one or more combination of computers shall be treated as one single computer. So this is subsection 3. So if we see subsection 1, 2, 3, and 4 together, we have to comply with the conditions of 2. We have to give a certificate in the court saying that it is true to the best of my knowledge and belief by a person who has a control over the computer, by himself or by an in charge of the office. And if there are multiple computers, we have to inform the court that there are multiple computers. We are taking information with regard to a Chennai operation in Delhi, giving it to you, and we are identifying the electronic record. So therefore, if you comply with all this, then your photocopy, your CD, your pen drive, your computer output, which you want to produce it in the court, can be presumed to be authentic. So it is like a presumption. If you prove a certificate, your document will be presumed to be authentic. This is what 65B is all about. Now, this 65B was introduced in 2000. From 2000 till about 2014, first judgment on 65B came in 2014. That is State versus Navjot Sandhu. This is 2005, volume 11, SCC 6000, where the Honorable Supreme Court, while dealing with this, has held that 65B is not mandatory, and there is no bar of adducing evidence under section 63 and 65. 63 and 65 are normal sections for adducing secondary evidence. That means if we ignore 65A and B, and if we have a document just like we had before, we have to prove it like any other evidence which we prove in the court of law, 63 and 65 of the Indian Evidence Act. For instance, I'll give you, I have a computer printout and I have a paper which is used with a carbon, like a carbon slip, which is not a computer generated. If it is written with carbon, it is not a computer output. It is basically a handwritten document with so therefore first document will have to be proved in terms of section 63 and 65, but a computer generated document has to be proved in terms of section 65A and 65B if we have the original. If we don't have the original, we come back to 63 and 65. So this judgment, which came in 2005, after 5 years of passing this Act of Information Technology Act, for the first time, they said it's not mandatory. But in 2014, roughly around after 14 years of 65A and B coming into picture, the first judgment which came of Supreme Court, which actually laid down the law, is Anwar PV versus PK Bashir. Now, Anwar PV says, sorry, if it is a computer output, as mentioned in 65B, 65B is a mandatory requirement. If the evidence is not supported by a certificate of 65B, we shall not consider this at all. It will be treated as inadmissible. So that was a law laid down in 2014. I'll give you the citation. 2014, volume 10, SCC, page 473. And it went on for about 4 years. Then in 2018, there's another judgment which was pronounced somewhere in January 2018, That is Shafi Mohammed versus State of Himachal Pradesh. And the citation is 2018 2 SCC page 801. Now, this judgment changed the complexion of 65B. You must understand, Anwar PV is a judgment of 3 judges, where Justice Rohington Nariman is one of the member of the bench. And in 2018, the judgment given by Shafi Mohammed, in the case of Shafi Mohammed versus State of Himachal Pradesh, it's of 2 judges, but again, Justice Rohington Nariman is one of the member of the bench. Now, Shafi Mohammed in 2018 says, there are certain conditions or certain circumstances where the original is not available with anyone. If original record is not available with anyone, because I have got an evidence which is clinching evidence, but I don't have the original, but I want to rely on this. So I produce it in the court, but I can't give 65B because 65B mandates that I have to have an original with me so that I can produce it during the course of trial. Accused can always say, accused can challenge the certificate of 65B and say, sorry, I don't believe in this. I want to inspect the original. That's the whole purpose of 65B. But in case there is no dispute with regard to original, then 65B is accepted, evidence is accepted as it is. But in Shafi Mohammed, the Honorable Supreme Court considered a situation where they said if it is not available, maybe there's in a case, like in a criminal case, an accused may bring an evidence to prove his innocence, of which he doesn't have the original. Or a complainant can bring an evidence to show that, yes, accused has committed the offense, but I don't have the original. Accused has the original. Then he's not required to give a certificate under 65B because he doesn't have the original. So Honorable Supreme Court carved out, although it's a division bench, only 2 judges bench, they distinguished this case from the case of Anwar PV and say, sorry, in every case, it is not mandatory to file 65B because you may not have the original in certain cases. So therefore, when you don't have the original in front of you, you can't file 65B. So you can prove that document in terms of section 63 and 65 of the Evidence Act, just like any other document. Because if you reject that evidence outright on the ground that 65B certificate is not filed, then the court is deprived to have a look at that evidence. That evidence may clinch the entire case. That evidence may be the most important evidence. But why should a court be precluded to have a look at that evidence just because one procedural requirement of 65B has not been complied with? So this judgment of 2 judges of the Supreme Court in 2018 slightly deviates from the law laid down in Anwar PV and says that no, 65B is not mandatory in all the cases. Procedure of 65B can be relaxed wherever the interest of justice justifies. That's the language used by the Honorable Court. Now, this judgment has created a little bit of anomaly, a little bit of confusion, although I feel there is no confusion. But yes, this situation could have been avoided if this issue was referred to a larger bench, to a 3 judges bench, because you can't directly dispute a judgment given by a larger bench by saying that we don't agree with this and we are carving out an exception to the rule. So anyway, but since it is a judgment, now with these 2 judgments, we have to see what is the law as on today. Just one caveat. The Honorable Supreme Court in 2020, in fact in 2019, but reported in 2020, in July 2019, the 2 judges bench of Supreme Court realized this anomaly and said, sorry, because we use technology every day and the evidence has to be adduced every day. So laws should be certain. There should not be any ambiguity in law. So therefore, in the case of Arjun Pandit Rao, the Honorable Supreme Court has referred this judgment of Shafi Mohammed to a larger bench. They said this dispute we can't survive. We will create confusion in the entire country. So they referred the second judgment to a larger bench. The language used by the referring bench is such as if they agree with Anwar PV. They said the second judgment requires reconsideration. And so both the judgments now are before a larger bench, and they have mentioned in that order that considering that it is such an important issue, we expect that it should be treated as an urgent case and a bench should be constituted. In fact, if this lockdown had not happened, I think we would have got a judgment on this issue by now. So, but law, if we see both of them together now, law is very, very clear. If a person who's relying upon an evidence and that evidence in original is available with him, then he can file a certificate of 65B and say, I don't need to produce the original before you. I don't need to adduce more evidence. This certificate will show it's an authentic information. Please accept it as it is. But if the original is not there, in terms of Shafi Muhammad, the person can say, I don't have the original. The accused has the original. You please direct him to produce. And if he doesn't produce, then take action against him. But I would like to rely on this. So carve out an exception, relax the procedure, and permit me to file this evidence in the court. So this Shafi Muhammad will permit that person to adduce evidence in the court where original is not available. So there is no ambiguity. It's very, very clear. Now, if we see, since the technology is being used every day, there are certain questions which obviously will come into your mind. The first question is, I have the original with me today. I have filed a certificate in the court. The trial is going on for 10 years. Do I need to preserve the original? So answer to that is yes, you have to preserve the original with you, because if you are a complainant and you have filed the evidence, or you are an investigating officer, you have filed the evidence along with the charge sheet, the accused can always demand to see that evidence, whether that evidence is available or not, or to see whether it's a reproduction of the original or not. Because in case there is a change in the nature of the content of the document, then of course, the certificate will come in a jeopardy. So that certificate will not be relied upon. So original should always be preserved. This is the first thing which we need to do. And of course, if there is no original, of course, you can't give a certificate. And if you give a certificate, then of course, that will be in violation of various provisions of law and may attract some penalty and also some penal action sometimes. Now, another question which will come in our mind is as to what is a computer output. I ask a question to myself that if I take a screenshot from this computer and share it with someone, suppose I have a note, I have one paragraph of a judgment which I want to share it with my friend. I take a screenshot and then transfer it to him. He takes a printout. If it is not a judgment, maybe some email, for instance. If he takes a printout, files it in the court, will it be admissible? Or if there is a scanned copy, suppose we use a scanner. We use a scanner, scan a document and file it in the court. The question is whether it is admissible or not. So first 65B1, the first paragraph itself will give an answer to all your queries with regard to computer output. What can be a computer output? So computer output, according to my understanding now, after reading all this, can be a printout, can be an information in pen drive, can be a CD, can be a DVD, can be a hard disk, can be any format. Even this, if I hand over the original phone to the investigating officer, investigating his officer has the primary evidence. But also, if it contains information from somewhere else, this will become a computer output. So all these equipments on which the information is stored will be treated as a computer output and can be produced in the court along with a certificate of 65B if we have preserved the original. And then there are various questions with regard to what information can be relied upon. Now today we have information on a click of a mouse on the computer or on a tap of a finger in your phone. You have information from all over the world. So there are tweets, there are WhatsApp messages, there are CCTV recordings which are available. I have CCTV of my house and my office on my phone. I can watch them whenever I want. If I save them, then the recording is saved on my mobile and I can mail it to anyone. So original is saved here. The CCTV recording is emailed to someone else. They will download the recording and file it in the court. So I have the original, and my office boy or my clerk or my associate from his computer can download and file it in the court with a certificate and a 65B. I have the original with me. So these are very complex questions which will come in future and which are there in any case. There are various, judgments. Every day we have a judgment. We have judgment on CCTV. We have a judgment on emails. We have a judgment on social media. How social media, information can be used in the court. And then we have telephonic conversations. Now, very often it happens that CBI or any other investigating agency, they go to the Ministry of Home and they say that we would like to intercept the telephone calls of these accused persons. They are suspect, they might commit an offense, so they're in the process of committing an offense. So one branch of CBI records the conversation. So that's the recording machine. That's the original. And whatever is recorded is then transferred into a pen drive or a CD and filed in the court along with a certificate of 65B. So if the original machine does not exist, or if the original machine is not available, then that CD cannot be provided in the court. And if CD cannot be provided, where's the question of 65B? So if you are relying on any electronic evidence, the original of which is available, Section 65B certificate can be filed in the court along with the computer output. And as I've said that the phones nowadays contain major information, so they are also treated as computers nowadays. And I have various judgments which you want, I can share it with you, or in case there are some questions which can be taken, I can take the question, because I have confined my talk primarily to 65B because it is supposed to be a bit complicated. I've tried to simplify it by saying that it is not all that complicated. Yes, language is very lengthy, compliances are very lengthy, but in 1 or 2 lines, if we want to interpret 65B is original is at home. I want to produce computer output, the printout, etc. in the court. If I have original, I am the one who's using it. I have a control over my computer. I file a certificate in the court saying that please don't direct me to produce the original. It's very tedious, but I'm giving an undertaking. I'm the one who use it every day. I have a control. My computer, my iPad, iPhone, iMac are connected together. They are in the same series. I've taken the printout from my iMac. So all these conditions are complied with. I give a certificate and it is accepted as it is in the court. It's very simple. There is no complication about this. So these are this is the issue with regard to 65B. Chahat, if you want to take the question straight away, then I can answer them.
Sure, sir.
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. It was such an insightful session, and indeed you have simplified Section 65B for us. So moving to the question and answer session. So we had received a lot of questions, but we have picked few, and I'll just take them one by one. So the first question is, what is the evidentiary value of information stored in servers outside India?
Server outside India? Oh, that's a very interesting question. Okay, let me tell you, I have dealt with this issue recently. Microsoft and BlackBerry, for instance, those, BlackBerry messages, WhatsApp messages, they all are stored abroad. This is the biggest fight in the world, because anybody who has the information about, what is happening in the world, he will be the most powerful person. So every country wants to have their own data with them. They don't want to share it with them. So America is number one. America has all the laws. America can take data from anywhere in the world, but will not share. That's a law which they have passed. Now, for us, for the trials in India, I don't think information on those servers are very important, unless and until the investigating agency is investigating something which is deleted from the computer. If I have emails which are stored in US, but I have my phone, I have my computer system, and I take a printout from there and I give it to the court. I don't need to go to US. But yes, if investigating officer finds that the WhatsApp chat has been deleted surreptitiously by an accused and he wants to retrieve it, then he may have to go there. Then he may have to approach the Department of Justice in US. He has to invoke MLAT, Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty. The Ministry of External Affairs will write to the Department of Justice in US, give all the particulars, give the detail of the case, and say we want the deleted data from this particular phone. So because all data is stored there and they have the jurisdiction, they have the control over it. So through MLAT, if a request is made, that deleted data can be retrieved from the server. Otherwise, it is not very relevant for us. If the information is available, then 65B certificate can be filed. Original is there in the computer. So I don't think there is any dispute vis-a-vis 65B. But yes, I recently did a case where BBM chat of an accused or of a deceased was required by the Special Investigating Team, SIT. They wrote letters, they filed applications in US, and US was not satisfied with the commission of offense. Thrice they went to US, 3 times they approached, and on all the 3 occasions, they rejected the application, saying that, sorry, first you have to say, prove prima facie whether the offense is made out or not. Because there are some, as I said in the beginning, the privacy laws are very, very strong over there. They will not part with information unless and until it is extremely serious and an offense is made out. So according to me, I don't think information stored abroad in the server will create any problem or has any consequence if the information is available in India.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. So you spoke about social media documents. Can those be used as electronic evidence?
Yes, 100%. Nowadays, in fact, there are some judgments of Delhi High Court also where WhatsApp messages were taken into consideration. So social media information, again, if it's available in original, then it can be used in any proceeding. You have WhatsApp and we have Instagram, we have Twitter messages, and we have Snapchat, and we have emails, which of course is not part of the social media, TikTok videos. All these are admissible in evidence and can be used. But yes, a person has to be very careful when he is downloading the information from social media. For instance, we are doing a case where we are relying upon the tweets of the deceased. I'm talking about Dr. Shashi Tharoor's case, where we are relying upon the tweets of the deceased, Mrs. Tharoor, where we are saying that if you read the tweets, even on the day, when she died, there is her frame of mind is absolutely normal. But the tweets are available in the phone. The IO has not taken the printout of those tweets. IO says, sorry, I don't have the tweets. I am saying the tweets are available in the phone. So please open the phone in the court, switch on the Twitter account. When we have the Twitter account, we can take a printout because we have the primary evidence available there. And the court is very conscious of the fact we have to argue this matter, but court is not saying it's not relevant. And court also doesn't say that you can't rely upon this. So WhatsApp, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, etc., all are admissible evidence if they are taken in the right perspective. For instance, if you're relying on a Facebook post, please download the entire Facebook account, or take, everything. You have to download everything so that it should look like the same. At the end of the day, when we produce that evidence in the court, then it should be the reproduction of the original. If it is reproduction of the original, so you have to capture the metadata of that information. You have to capture the account as it is, download all the information, give a 65B certificate, produce the phone or the computer when it's required. It's admissible in evidence.
Okay, thank you, sir. So you also spoke about preserving the original document. So whether the original document or electronic record has to be retained after tendering a certificate under Section 65B.
Yes, yes, it is required. Because very often, if the electronic evidence is challenged by an accused in the court, and the accused says that produce the original, you are bound to produce the original. The police agency and the complainant is bound to produce the original in the court for verification. Because at the end of the day, what we are seeing is the computer output should match with the original. If it doesn't match, suppose 65B certificate is filed, but the computer output information is tampered with. The email is tampered with. Suppose an email which is produced in the court, somebody has added one line. How do you prove it? You only prove when the original is brought. So original should be preserved. If original is not there and the accused challenges in the court and also challenges the certificate, then it'll create a problem in the court. So it'll jeopardize the entire thing. So therefore, original has to be preserved in any case.
Okay, sir. So the next question is certificate under Section 65B mandatory to produce with all electronic evidence? If not, under what circumstances can it be waived off?
Waived off. I think I have referred to this this Shafi's judgment, and that is a judgment which says that in certain condition where original is not there, there you have to, you can seek waiver of filing 65B certificate saying that original is not with us, original is with somebody else. So please give a direction to him to produce. Under Section 91, for instance, there is the power of the court to call for documents. And there are some documents which are available only with the government, for instance, the government public documents. And in terms of Section 63 and 65, they are presumed to be genuine document because the government has the custody of those documents. So wherever a person is not in a position to produce the original, there you can seek exemption now only in terms of the Shafi Muhammad judgment. If there was no judgment of Shafi Muhammad, then only Anwar PV judgment would have said that, no, sorry, we will not rely upon the documentary evidence, electronic evidence, because you have to produce 65D. But this gives an opportunity to bring in more evidence where the original is not there. You can seek exemption by relying on this judgment. But of course, this judgment is now under consideration. Of course, Supreme Court now will deal with all these issues. And in Shafi Muhammad, why they passed this order was that they considered few examples. One of the example was, if suppose I'm traveling from abroad and I have a boarding pass and I have a plea of alibi in the court. I want to show to the court that on that particular day, I was not in the country. So how can I commit an offense? And I don't have the original boarding pass with me. I have only one boarding pass given by the airline. So I will have to go to US. That airline make a request, give me the original, airline will be least bothered. So under those circumstances, the Supreme Court says, if you don't have the original, how can you produce, certificate under 65B? So you prove this boarding pass by way of Section 63 and 65 by producing additional evidence. And there are many, nowadays, since we know that technology is taking over all our monetary transactions. You do a Paytm. What is the evidence you have of the payment which is being made? You don't have a receipt. How will you show to the court you have paid 10,000 rupees to a particular departmental store? You don't have the evidence. The only evidence is your phone, which is your computer now. So from there you will generate it. If you don't have that information, you'll have to go to Paytm, because Paytm now have started giving you statements. So wherever statements are not available, wherever original is not available, this situation will always come. So therefore, my personal view is, after taking into consideration both the judgments, that in future you will find a judgment of Supreme Court which carves out exceptions, that we are not relying only on 65B. You have other modes also available in the Indian Evidence Act, like 63 and 65. Use that and prove your evidence.
Okay, thank you, sir. That clarifies our doubt.
Yes.
Moving on to the next question, sir. Can a certificate under Section 65B of Evidence Act be filed at any stage of proceedings, or technicalities will demolish the entire case or prosecution if the same is not filed at the stage where it was supposed to be filed?
I think, according to my understanding, 65B certificate should be filed at the earliest. When investigation is going on, it should be filed with the charge sheet. Charge sheet is the first stage when you are filing a report into the court, and the court has to take cognizance, and court will be taking cognizance on the evidence which is filed by the police. So that is the earliest stage on which you can file it. Otherwise, now I think Justice Sanjeev Khanna gave a judgment a few years back where he said that if 65B certificate is not filed, then it is an irregularity, but it is a curable irregularity. So you can always cure it. You can subsequently file a fresh certificate or a certificate in compliance of 65B. But as a practice and as the policy, the court should insist that you file it at the earliest, because when you file it at the earliest, you have the original computer with you. You can take the computer output and file it in the court. Suppose you don't file it for 5 years and you don't have the original computer. How will you file 65B? So at the time of filing 65B, you have to have the original computer with you. So therefore, it should be filed at the earliest. But yes, according to few judgments, it is an irregularity which is curable, but it has to be cured in accordance with the language used in 65B.
Okay. Thank you, sir. You also spoke about screenshots and WhatsApp messages. So can
Yes.
electronic evidence be given for WhatsApp chats, normal voice recording, and video recordings done discreetly? And who would be providing with the certificate in this scenario?
Yes, of course, discreetly doesn't mean that he doesn't have the original. Discreetly means without informing the other person. So when you discreetly record something, a phone conversation or a video, then of course you are violating the right to privacy of that individual, and he can sue you for doing that. But as far as evidence is concerned, if the original video recording or voice recording is available, then that can be filed in the court along with a certificate of 65B, because you have the original with you. And of course, the normal law with regard to conversation will apply. The normal law is that the voice sample has to be taken and it has to be sent to forensic. The voice should match. And of course, this kind of conversation, if intercepted and recorded, can be used only as corroborative evidence. That's the law on conversation. But yes, as far as evidence is concerned, whether it is recorded with the permission or without the permission, if you have the original, at least you can file it in the court. It will be admissible as far as the evidence is concerned.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So next one is a very interesting question. How does one prove that electronic evidence is not doctored?
It's not doctored.
Yes.
So it is like, when the evidence comes to the court and there is a 65B certificate, you have to impeach the credibility of the person who has given the certificate. As far as doctoring of any evidence is concerned, it can only be possible when a forensic test is done. Suppose, as I just said, that if a phone call is recorded or a video is recorded and phone call is given in the court with a transcript saying that this is the phone call which has been recorded with him, and now here he has admitted to his guilt, for instance, or he is admitted to committing the offense. So whether it is doctored or not, it has to be sent to a forensic, and a forensic report will come, and the CFSL or the lab to which it is referred to will give a report that yes, the voice is matching and it is not doctored or edited and it is not in somebody else's voice. All that can be done only when it is sent to an expert who will give an opinion. That's the normal way of doing it, but there is no other way. But one thing is sure, filing a doctored evidence or a fake evidence along with a certificate under 65B does not authenticate that evidence. That evidence has to be independently proved if it is challenged by a person in the court.
Okay, sir. That explains it. So moving on to the next question. There
Yes.
is confusion in Supreme Court judgments whether a certificate is required to prove an electronic evidence according to Section 65, Clause 4 of Evidence Act. So could you clear this conundrum over the issue?
I think confusion I have already covered. You must be talking about confusion between these two judgments. There is
Right,
no
sir.
other confusion with regard to certificate under 65B. This confusion is created only by this judgment, which I think will be sorted out soon. But as of now, also, even if we accept both the judgment, there is no confusion according to me. It is just that it brings some clarity and give an opportunity to a person to bring in evidence, the original of which is not available. Earlier, when only Bashir judgment was there, then the only opportunity was that you file only when you have the original. Rest of the evidence is thrown out of the court. Now, rest of the other evidence of which original is not available can also be entertained. So I don't think as of now there is any confusion. On the contrary, more evidence will start coming to the court, which can be proved under the normal laws of 63 and 65, giving an opportunity to widen the scope of inquiry and investigation. So there is no confusion, but yes, it requires clarity. The ambiguity should be removed so that the courts and the police know how to deal with this matter.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the next question is, if the email is to be put as evidence, but I have a printout, but deleted the mail from my account, how can I compel the other party to produce that email from their account? Is it like possible to do that?
You mean to say it is deleted from one account?
Yes, sir. From my account, I've sent an email to the other party.
Okay, you
And
you
taken a
have sent an
printout.
email. You have sent an email but taken a printout. The
And
other
deleted
person
from
has
my
received it and
right,
deleted, but other person has received it and he has it in his account.
right. How do I compel the other party to produce that document?
Right. So you can only compel in terms of section, there is a provision, section 66 of the Evidence Act, rules as to notice to produce. So when we are dealing with secondary evidence, there is a provision of law which says that the court can direct someone to bring it. In 91, somebody can direct to bring it. And in section 66 also, because 66 says secondary evidence of the content of document referred to in 65 clauses shall not be given unless the party proposing to give such secondary evidence has previously given to the party in whose possession or power the document is. So if email is exchanged between A and B, A wants to rely upon it, has a certificate but has deleted, then he can write to B saying that I want a copy of this email. And if he doesn't give, then you can go to the court saying that I have complied with this section 66. I have written a letter. He is not sharing it with me. Kindly you conduct an inquiry or you direct that he should produce it. So therefore, compelling to produce document, information and evidence is part of the criminal procedure. So we can use those provisions to our advantage. But of course, if he has also deleted, suppose he takes a plea that he has deleted it, then it will be very difficult to prove. Then you have to go to US, invoke MLAT and ask for deleted emails.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. So the next question is related to the Anwar PB case and the Shafi Mohammed case. If you may permit me, I just read one relevant para and I'll put forth the question.
Yes, yes, please.
So in Anwar Bashir case, Supreme Court has observed that an electronic record by way of secondary evidence shall not be admitted in evidence unless the requirement under Section 65B are satisfied. Thus, in the case of CD, VCD, chip, etc., the same shall be accompanied by the certificate in terms of Section 65B obtained at the time of taking the document, without which the secondary evidence pertaining to that electronic record is inadmissible.
Right.
And in the Shafi Mohammed case, the Supreme Court has observed that accordingly we clarify the legal position on the subject on the admissibility of electronic evidence, especially by a party who is not in possession of device from which the document is produced. Such party cannot be required to produce certificate under Section 65B Clause 4 of the Evidence Act. The applicability of requirement of certificate being procedural can be relaxed by court wherever interest of justice so justifies. And you have already spoken about this, sir. So we just wanted to clarify that has Shafi's case overruled Anwar PV judgment or just a deviation?
No. It can't. Actually, two judges can never overrule three judges. In fact, a good constitutional lawyer can argue by saying that the second judgment is per incurium, because second judgment, if you see, goes completely contrary to what is said in PV Anwar, in Anwar PV. So when we are talking about the constitutionality of this judgment, whether it is binding or not, a lawyer can argue that it is per incurium. But I am not considering it as per incurium. I am saying it is only clarificatory. Although it says, because as you rightly said, I think you must have read para 22 of
Yes,
PV
sir.
Anwar's case. So
Para
22, yes. So para 22, if you read, is very categorical. Para 22 says no certificate under 65B is mandatory in all the cases of electronic evidence. That's the law laid down by Anwar PV. So, and when you read in Shafi Muhammad, the relevant paragraphs are 29 and 30. I don't have the book with me, but I have the STC printout, which you read. Of course, I think you read 29. So 29 and 22, if they are read together, then 29 does not agree with 22, does not agree with the three judges bench judgment, and say, sorry, it's not mandatory. And it can be relaxed. The word used by them is requirement of certificate under 65B is not always mandatory, and the applicability of requirement of certificate being procedural, they are saying it's only a procedural requirement, can be relaxed by the court whenever interest of justice so justifies. That is why in the next case, in Arjun Pandit Rao, the Honorable Supreme Court says that this judgment requires reconsideration. But in my view, it has not overruled, it cannot overrule. So the answer to your question is, two judges bench judgment cannot overrule a larger bench judgment or a three judges bench judgment. So it is not overruled at all, that is for sure. But yes, it is in contradiction with three judges judgment on certain issues, that whether section 65B certificate is mandatory or not. They said it's not mandatory, it can be relaxed. To that extent, yes, it is contradictory.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying that, sir. So moving on to one last question. What is the practice of the courts about admissibility of evidence after this Anwar Bashir case?
So after Anwar Bashir, 65B is mandatory. So we all are filing it in the court. If it is not being filed, then of course, the counsels are cross-examining the person who has given the certificate on various aspects of the matter. When you cross-examine, of course, you see whether 65B subsection 2 has been complied with or not. You can ask about questions. You can ask about the certificate. You can ask about knowledge and belief. You can ask about the authority of that individual. So all those questions are asked. But yes, post Anwar PV, even till date, the filing of the evidence, the computer output, along with certificate under 65B is mandatory. It's compulsory. If it is not done, then it is not, admissible in evidence. But the only exception carved out is the judgment of Shafi Muhammad. That's the only exception now, which needs clarification from the Supreme Court.
Thank you so much, sir. Looks like we have covered all the questions. There's so much to learn from you, sir, but this is just an hour session, and we would love to do many more legit class with you, subject to your availability. So is there
I think if you see, I think in the chat I can see some questions. Do you see? If there's something interesting you would like to ask?
Sure, sir. I'll just pick something from here. So mostly we have covered, but...
So somebody says about sting operation. Can a sting operation can be used? This is from Arga Acharya. Can a sting operation be used as an electronic evidence under 65B? Sting operation has its own guidelines. There are some judgments of Supreme Court and also guidelines issued by the ministry, how sting operations are conducted. D holds that if the original cliplet of the sting operation is available and a copy of which is in the form of computer output, is filed in the court along with the certificate under 65B, then of course it's admissible as far as the content is concerned. that recording is concerned. Whether that recording can be used or not, we have to see with regard to guidelines. If guidelines are violated, then of course accused can say that, sorry, this is not admissible. But with regard to the admissibility of that sting operation video, yes, if it is filed with 65B, original available, it is admissible in evidence.
Thank you so much, sir. So actually, we have a lot of questions. So if you want to answer any of them, you can just let
Electronic evidence, I'll just read from Phul Kumari Advocate. Electronic evidence in the form of photo, video, voice or mobile phone and memory card inside it filed before court with 65B certificate, but after few year mobile phone including memory card inside it snatched by goons. Then what will be the status of 65? Interesting. So what madam says is that if the original phone is stolen or it is robbed by someone, that means the original is not available. So we come back onto the elementary question that 65B certificate is given when original is preserved. If original is not preserved and the accused asks for the original in the court for comparison, then of course we have to come down to the other sections of the Indian Evidence Act by which we can prove the secondary evidence, 63 and 65. So therefore, the 65B certificate will become doubtful because 65B says that if you comply with the condition of 65B, then you don't need to bring the original. So certificate itself mandates that preserve the original. You may be called to bring the original to the court. If original is not available, then obviously, as I say, you know, this may be a authentic case, but there may be cases where a doctored evidence or an evidence is fabricated, filed with 65B. Tomorrow, the person can take a stand that I don't have the original because somebody has stolen it from me. So law remains the same, even if it is stolen or it is only created. If original is not available, then evidence has to be adduced in terms of 63 and 65 of the Indian Evidence Act. So madam cannot say that since it is not available, my certificate will justify my evidence. It won't. And then Ms. Pragya Chandra says, it was a very informative session. My question to you is, if the compliance of provision under 65B is not compulsory in view of Shafi Muhammad case law, what shall the legislative intent be behind such a legislation? No, I think my talk must have clarified this issue. It has got nothing to do with legislation. The government, the parliament has created the act and brought changes. It is the interpretation which the Supreme Court has done. And in one case, Anwar PV, they have interpreted it's mandatory. In second case, they have carved out an exception. In certain cases, it is not mandatory because original is not available. Now we will have a new judgment because it's referred to a larger bench. So the legislative intent has got nothing to do with it. Legislative intent means whether the provision of law is unconstitutional or is ultra vires. I think the constitutional validity of these sections have already been tested and all these provisions are constitutionally valid. Mr. Yogendra Singh says, can we compel someone to give 65B on our behalf? For example, cyber cafe owner. Again, as I said, section 66, if the original is not available, then you can ask for the third party who's in possession of the original to bring, and there are laws, there's a procedure given in the Act. 66 of the Indian Evidence Act says you ask for a copy. So he can be compelled to give a copy. You can go to the court and seek a direction that he should give a copy. And of course, in this case, if the original is with cafe owner, he will not have any problem in sharing it because he has got no interest in this document. And then Manmeet Singh says, suppose if we have taken screenshot of emails and that person has deleted all emails, can we produce that as evidence? I think the answer to this is that screenshot is a computer output. But if original is not available, then 65B certificate will not suffice. It will not be enough. And you have to prove those screenshots by producing some email or the other. So therefore, you have to invoke 63 and 65 of the Evidence Act. Murli Singla, Mr. Murli Singla says, if original record is in such a way which cannot be produced or in readable form. For example, if call tapping is done in a computer which can not be read and can be copied in the CD form, then how original will have any meaning? I think it's not properly formulated. But yes, if the recording is done, original recorder is available, and it is transported or converted into CD. CD is filed in the court with 65B. It will be admissible in evidence. Mr. Akarsh Tripathi says, at what stage 65B4 certificate should be submitted? Anwar judgment has failed to bring clarity on this issue, and the judgment, High Court have been given contradictory judgment on the same. I think, as I have answered, that it can be filed at any time, because in a case, I can give you a judgment of Justice Sanjeev Khanna, which is Kundan Singh versus State. It's a division bench of Delhi High Court, which is 215 SCC Online Delhi 13645. And also there's a judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court, which has said that this evidence, I can share that, yes. Offhand, Sonu versus State of Haryana. Sonu versus State of Haryana is a Supreme Court judgment. I don't have the citation with me, but if you Google Sonu versus State of Haryana, which is a Supreme Court judgment, it'll give you the answer that the certificate can be given even at a later stage. And then we have Mr. Pranjal Pandey. Can a voice and video recording of a person confessing to a crime be adduced as evidence? Can the person use Article 22, which provides for no self-incrimination? Okay, it's not Article 22, it is Article 20, Clause 3. That is right of silence, that, which also stops from self-incrimination. And you said, can a voice and video recording of a person? It's like a confession. Okay, let me answer that. It's a very interesting question. Normally, in any investigation, confessions are recorded, the disclosures are recorded, and those are produced along with the charge sheet. But we all know that statements given to police is inadmissible in evidence in terms of Section 25, 26, and 27 of the Indian Evidence Act. The only thing which is admissible is the recovery, which is made under Section 27 of the Indian Evidence Act. So whether that confession or disclosure is in writing or in video form doesn't make a difference. The evidentiary value remains the same, that it is inadmissible in evidence. Yes, it can be filed. In fact, now there's a question which has been put to a bench in the Supreme Court. I think Supreme Court is considering whether all investigation now should be videographed. Even the arrest should be videographed, and the discoveries should be videographed. Everything should be videographed. Statement should also be videographed. Whether an accused is being compelled to give a statement or not can be manifested from where looking at the video. So paper form or video form, it is only a technological difference. The technology is taking over. So I'm sure in future, everything will be in electronic form. So voice and video recording, whether it is in the form of video or etc., it is inadmissible if it's a confession before the police. Shireen Khajuria says, sir, do we really need 65B? Or it should be done away with as being unnecessary and merely increases confusion about person who can give the certificate. As I said in the beginning, I used a very crude language that it's a shortcut. So if everything is intact, only one document, that is the certificate, is produced in the court. It saves a lot of time. So I would say that in case there is no dispute in the evidence, then a lot of time can be saved with 65B. Original is not required to come, further proof is not required. So in my view, if it's there in the statute book, if it is there in the Indian Evidence Act, And if majority of evidence is not disputed, then I think 65B will save a lot of time. So it should stay according to me. And then Ms. Vanita Singh, sir, if original document is destroyed permanently, but we have a computer output as a copy, will it be admissible in court? I think I've already answered. Original is required, it's compulsory. If it is not available, then go back to 63 and 65 of the Indian Evidence Act. Advocate Sharma says, what is the what is to be practically done while preserving the material? A video recording of the same, intimation to the IO when it is being preserved by the accused. I think when the 65B certificate is prepared, of course, at that point of time, the original is available. So original should be preserved, intimation of which can be given to the authorities, saying that, in fact, in the certificate itself, if one line is added, that we have the original and we undertake to produce whenever the court wants, that will always help. So in the certificate itself, according to my understanding, if one line is added, then it can save a lot of issues. I think there are long lists, but do we have time, Chahat, for more or?
Sir, if you want, you can take questions, so no problem.
Okay, I'll take one more.
Okay.
In the case of a company, if they have to prove printout of account statement, who should give certificate? The person in the accounts department who made the statement on his computer, or the computer department in charge who keeps server, or the person who prints it out? Thank you for answering this. I think 65B itself talks about it. If you see 65B4, the last 4 lines talk about the person who can give a certificate. So it starts once 4 ABC is over, it says, and purporting to be signed by a person occupying a responsible official position in relation to the operation of the relevant device. So if I stop here, a responsible person, who has an official position in relation to the operation of that device, of the computer. So in a case of branch, there's a cashier, there's an accountant, even the branch manager can do it because he has a control over all the devices. Or second, or the management of the relevant activities, whichever is appropriate, shall be evidence of any other matter stated in the certificate. So a person who's operating the computer can give it, person who's immediate senior of his can give it, person who's in charge of that office can give it, but they have to only write that this information, if is not operating, he has to say it is to the best of my knowledge and belief. It is like a certificate which is giving. So therefore, anybody who's who's privy to that information, related to that information, can give a certificate. Of course, a peon cannot give a certificate, or a person who cannot read and write cannot give a certificate, because how can he say it is to the best of my knowledge and belief, because he doesn't have the knowledge. So it is only a person who has the knowledge of computers or of that activity can give that certificate. A person who's illiterate, person who's a peon, or any other person who doesn't know about the activity and the computer cannot give a certificate. So I think I've answered quite few of them.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. You have answered almost all the questions. Sir, there's just one thing. I think you referred to one judgment. Was it Sonu at Amar versus State of Haryana by Honorable Chief Justice S.A. Bobde and...
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So I'll just give the citation to the participants.
Please.
It's 2017 8 SCC 570. And,
thank you. I don't have the citation. I just remembered that judgment. So thank you for sharing the citation.
Thank you so much, sir. So is there anything that you would like to add before we wrap up?
I can only say that since, in these COVID times, as I started by saying that we all have now addicted to technology. We can't survive without this technology. We can't even work without this technology. So therefore, it's very important for all of us to understand the law on technology. Now you imagine a situation where almost 50% of our cases are done by video conferencing. Now take for instance the issue of video conferencing. We are arguing a matter in the court. through a platform, and we have to see the authenticity of that format. I am logging in by saying I am Vikas Pawar Senior Advocate. I may not be Vikas Pawar Senior Advocate tomorrow. I may impersonate somebody as Vikas Pawar Senior Advocate, argue a matter in the court. How do you establish the authenticity? First question. Second, because we are talking about technology. So in technology, a lot of problems will be happening in future, because everything, all trading is done in technology. We are not going to the market. We are buying everything from technology. There'll be hacking of computers. There'll be problem with our accounts. It's very, very important that we are conversant. We make ourselves conversant with the laws, because the law must change along with the technology. Now, this kind of confusion, just imagine, 2014 is Anwar PV, 18 is Shafi Mohammed, we are in 2020. This matter should have been settled by now. Why there is an ambiguity in this law? Ambiguity in this law is not required because technology is changing. So we have to upgrade the laws accordingly. We have to upgrade our system accordingly. So this is one subject which I request all my colleagues to go through it very, very carefully. Keep a track of the Information Technology Act. Keep a track of law of evidence, what is happening, because this will be very, very useful in future. Other laws are also important, but this, according to me now, because technology is involved and technology is changing every day, this law is an interesting law. And I would request all my friends and colleagues, lawyers and students, to kindly go through this, read these judgments, keep yourself well versed with the new law which is coming, the new judgments which are coming, and keep a track of all this. So as of now, since we are talking about 65B, I thought it's important that I can speak about this. Rest, of course, we all are under lockdown. So there are some section of our bar who's not very receptive to technology. They want that the court should open. I still feel that we are fortunate. Our fraternity is fortunate that we have an alternate mechanism of video conferencing. So therefore, we should promote video conferencing. We should have more and more of webinars like this. It's very educative, not only for the participants, but also for us, because we also have to do a comprehensive study of everything. So let's make the best use of these free times, whatever little free times we have in lockdown. Once the unlocking starts and we come back to normal, I don't think we will be able to have so much of time in hand. So let's avail, benefit of this opportunity. And thank you so much for calling me. And I enjoyed speaking about this, I'm sure. And I hope the participants also enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you on behalf of Legit Quest and Mr. Karan Kalia to spare your valuable time for this Legit class. It was such an insightful and informative session. We had a great session today. It was an honor to have you. And I would also like to thank everyone for being a part of today's Legit class. For recording of this Legit class, you can subscribe to Legit Quest's YouTube channel. We hope to see you again. Good evening, sir, and thank you so much again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you.